There is an Eastern legend about a Hindu woman whose only child had died. She went to a prophet to ask for her child back. And the prophet told her to go and obtain a handful of rice from a house into which death had not come. If she could obtain the rice in this way, he promised to give her her child back. So from door to door, she went, asking the question, "Are you all here around the table? Father, mother, children, all present, none missing?" But always the answer came back that there were empty chairs in that house. As she continued on, her grief and sorrow softened as she found that death had visited all families. Sad as it is, death is universal. Our painful experience is not the only one of its kind. And yet, because our culture does not necessarily encourage a healthy view of death, we struggle to believe just how common the experience is. We struggle to believe and accept that death is truly a part of life. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away to the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we still are. So begins the poem, Death is Nothing at All, written in 1910 by Henry Scott Holland. I'm intrigued by this poem because it counters much of what our culture teaches us about death. First of all, I don't think death is viewed as nothing at all. Most of the time, it's a pretty big deal, and far too often it's a surprising shock. It's an experience that, if we are honest, sends most of us to a difficult place where we try to balance emotions with reason and understanding. When we are forced to confront and cope with a death, most of us find whatever comfort we can within our religious framework or our faith community. There are widely differing beliefs about death across the world religions. Both Muslims and Christians believe in the afterlife and view worldly life much in terms of preparation for eternal life. Many Native Americans and Buddhists alike believe that the living coexist with those who have passed on. This is called ancestor worship, and it teaches that those who have passed away may have supernatural powers over those in the living world, the ability to give curses or blessings, or to give or take life. In both Hinduism and Buddhism, death is not seen as the end of life. It is merely the end of the body in which we inhabit, and the spirit remains and will seek new attachment to a new body and a new life. Traditional Christianity teaches us that when we leave this earth, we go to heaven and spend eternity with God. In the Bible, we are able to find multiple scriptures that tell us that God prepares a place for us in heaven, while we hope that our loved one has escaped the flames of hellfire. Personally, I prefer the assuring scriptures that remind us that God is with us and is our comforter, even as we mourn our losses. In Psalm 147, verse 3, we read that God heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. Now, if you're not comfortable turning to religion or God or any other higher power, then perhaps you turn to your friends, or you turn to a counselor or another wise sage in your life to help you get through the process of grieving a loved one. Now, while I have mentioned that word grief, I want to take a moment and expand on that. Grief is not just about death. Grief is about loss. And whenever we encounter true grief, it ungrounds us. And it often causes us to behave and do things that that are oddly opposite of what we might need. We often isolate ourselves or set ourselves apart from our tribe or from our people, even though that's the time when we most need support. Much of the time when we are sad or upset or reacting poorly to a situation, actually we are steeped in grief. We've lost something and we may not even be aware of it. Yes, it could be a person, but it is often something else. It could be a dream. It could be an idea that we had hoped would happen, a relationship that went south, a relationship that we suddenly see as not what we ever wanted it to be, and now it's something else, or it could be a disappointment that has rocked us backwards and has made us feel unvalued or insignificant. Grief means feeling suddenly like we have no place or no longer fit in. Losing that job, that project, that relationship, that place, that person. Those are all reactions to incredible losses, and we feel immense grief. Now, you would think with all of the loss that we experience in our lives, you would think we would be better at grieving, but we aren't. In fact, I believe that grieving is one activity that never gets easier. I don't think we ever get better at it. In fact, it might even compound with each loss that we experience. Sometimes, though, just recognizing that we are grieving can help the healing process begin. Sometimes when we name it and we know what it is, we can start to figure out what's going on in our mind, body, and spirit. Whenever we find ourselves experiencing a loss and therefore in the midst of grief, we need to go easy on ourselves and we need to listen to that mind, body, spirit connection. What does our spirit need? We need to know what it needs so we can feed it. Sometimes we need isolation. Sometimes we need companionship. Sometimes it's a distant reassurance that we still matter, that was sent to us through kind words or through a gesture of love. Oddly, when we are forced to encounter death, we are sometimes energized to live our lives far more fully, far more creatively, more in the way we wish that we could live. We've all read about or heard about stories of people who've had near-death experiences and they've come back to this life with a renewed spirit of compassion and a deeper sense of faith or belief. When we embrace the loss of a loved one or friend, we often experience that same resolve to live more fully, more completely. But the most common struggle that we have following a death, along with the feelings of grief, is how to best honor and remember that person going forward. Let's return to that poem that I read a few moments ago and focus on those last two lines. Whatever we were to each other, that we still are. I think those few words hold the key to our ability to honor and celebrate our friends and our family members who are no longer with us. Even after they are gone, our relationships continue. The labels that we had are still there. She is still your mother. He is still your friend. Your parents' advice lives for generations after they are gone, just like the family recipes do. There are many ways that we can maintain those relationships and keep their memories and images alive. We talk about them, light a candle for them, finish projects that they were working on, plant a tree or a garden in their memory. We can draw nearer to them by singing their favorite song, reading their favorite books, displaying photos of them, creating a unique piece of jewelry from something that belonged to them. Most importantly, we talk about them. We share the stories of their lives with our family members and our friends. We remember those hilarious moments. We remember the tender times. We remember what they liked to do, and we feel closer to them when we do that same task. This past week, I realized as I was passing out candy to the freezing trick-or-treaters that I was doing one of my father's favorite tasks. He loved handing out candy on Halloween evening, or as we used to say back in the day in Ohio, on Beggar's Night. Let's try to live our lives in a way that would make them proud. Finish or go back to school, have adventures, and be happy. It's what they want for us. We might want to take time to remember their words of encouragement. Recall the ways that their hands cared for us. Recognize the time that they spent guiding us on our journey. Recall the sound of their voices, the odd words they used to say, the beauty of their laughter. Close your eyes and see them walk across the room. As we recall in slivers and glimpses the life that we had with those who are now gone, we might feel loving memories swirling around, mixed in with frustrating memories. We might be struggling with a mixture of conflicting emotions. And to that I would say, find the best. Select the best moments from that carousel of images and memories. Find and hold fast to their best times that reveal their best nature on their best days. Isn't that how we would all like to be remembered, at our best, not at our worst? Remember the surprises and the laughter, no matter how rarely they occurred. Remember them when they were beautiful and vibrant, not when they were sick. Remember when they were at their very best. And they will always be with us. In our minds and in our hearts, they live in us. In our reflection, in our movements, in our speech, and in our spirits. They live in you. They live in me. They live in us. Amen. Author Anne Lamott wrote, "You will lose someone you can't live without, and your heart will be badly broken. And the bad news is that you will never completely get over the loss of your beloved. But this is also the good news. They live forever in your broken heart that doesn't seal back up. And you come through. It's like having a broken leg that never heals perfectly, that still hurts when the weather gets cold. But you learn to dance with the limp." My prayer for each one of us today is that we embrace the life that we have yet to live, and that we continue to dance with the limp while we carry the very, very best memories of our loved ones who live deep within us. Have a great Sunday and go in peace. Amen.